14-year-old college dropout, a single idea, and $9 billion that never existed. This is the story of the greatest medical fraud in Silicon Valley history, and today you are inside it. You get an email. It's from a company called Theranos. You've heard the name. Everyone has. The founder is on the cover of Forbes. Time magazine calls her the next Steve Jobs. She's worth $4.5 billion on paper. She's 31 years old. The email says they want to interview you. You think about your student loans, your $38,000 salary, your tiny apartment in Palo Alto. You reply in 6 seconds.
The office is in East Palo Alto. It's called the Stealth Building. You walk in, black walls, white floors, no windows. Everyone is wearing black turtlenecks. You find out later that's the dress code. Elizabeth wears one every day. So does everyone else. You meet her in person. Her voice is deep, deliberately deep. She practiced it. You don't know that yet. She looks you in the eye and says, "We are going to save lives. One drop of blood, that's all it takes. We can detect cancer, diabetes, heart disease with a single finger prick." You feel it, that thing, that pull. This isn't just a job. This is a mission. They offer you $110,000 a year, full benefits, stock options. You sign the NDA before you leave the building, 14 pages. You don't read it carefully. Nobody does. Your first week, you learn the product. It's called the Edison, a small machine, about the size of a printer. It's supposed to run 200 blood tests from one drop of blood in under an hour. You're told it works. You're told it's revolutionary. You're told not to discuss it outside the building. You start working 14-hour days. Elizabeth is always there, 6 a.m., 10 p.m. She doesn't sleep, or at least it seems that way. The board of directors includes George Shultz, former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State, James Mattis, future Secretary of Defense. You think these men would never back something fake. The company is now valued at $9 billion. Walgreens signs a deal. Real Walgreens stores across America. Real patients getting real blood tests. On the Edison, the machine that doesn't work.
You start to notice things. A colleague runs a test on the Edison. The result comes back. Then they run it again. Different result. You ask your supervisor. They tell you it's a calibration issue. It'll be fixed. It's never fixed. You find out the lab is running most of the tests on commercial machines, not the Edison, Siemens machines, regular lab equipment, the kind that every hospital uses. So why does the brochure show the Edison? You ask a senior engineer. He stares at you for a moment. Then he says, "That's above your pay grade." You find an internal memo. Results from the Edison have a 30% error rate on certain tests. 30%. That means 1 in 3 patients could be getting the wrong result. Wrong diagnosis, wrong medication, wrong decisions about their own bodies. And nobody is stopping it. You think about saying something. You open your mouth. Then you remember the NDA. 14 pages, $500,000 penalty for disclosure, plus legal action. You close your mouth. By now, you know the truth. The Edison doesn't work. It never worked. Elizabeth knows it doesn't work. Sonny knows it doesn't work. Sonny Balwani, Elizabeth's secret boyfriend, also the president of the company. He walks through the office and people go silent. He fires people on the spot. He monitors emails. He once told an employee, "If you're loyal to this company, you'll do what you're told." You try to find an exit. A friend got out 6 months ago. He told you he had to sign a second NDA on the way out. The company's lawyers called him 4 months later anyway, just to remind him. You look up the whistleblower laws. You think about calling a journalist. Then you read a story about a former employee named Tyler Shultz, grandson of George Shultz, the board member. He tried to report the fraud internally. Elizabeth brought in lawyers within 24 hours. His own grandfather didn't believe him. You realize something. You are not just an employee. You are a brick in the wall, and the wall is everywhere. October 2015. A reporter named John Carrier publishes a story in the Wall Street Journal. The headline is quiet, clinical, but the impact is seismic. Hot startup Theranos has struggled with its blood test technology. Elizabeth goes on TV. She calls it a lie. She calls it an attack from competitors. She smiles her practiced smile. She uses her practiced voice. For a moment, people believe her. Then, the FDA walks into the Theranos lab. They inspect the Edison. They shut it down. Then CMS, the federal health regulator, inspects the lab. They find a lab poses immediate jeopardy to patient health. Walgreens cancels the partnership. $140 million in contracts? Gone. The board starts asking questions. The $9 billion valuation evaporates in months, then weeks. June 2018, Elizabeth Holmes is indicted. Federal fraud charges, wire fraud, conspiracy. Sunny Balwani is indicted separately. The trial begins in 2021. Patients testify. A woman who was falsely told she might have HIV. A man who was told his cancer markers were dangerously high. They made life decisions based on those results. Wrong results, from a machine that was never real. January 3, 2022. Elizabeth Holmes is found guilty. 4 counts of criminal fraud. Sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. Sunny Balwani, nearly 13 years. At sentencing, Elizabeth said she was devastated. She raised over $700 million from investors. She paid herself millions. She built an empire on a single lie dressed up as a revolution. And here's the thing. She didn't start as a villain. She started as a 19-year-old with a dream, big enough to blind her, powerful enough to blind everyone around her. The dream became an obsession. The obsession became a cover-up. The cover-up became a crime. And somewhere right now, in a glass office in San Francisco, a founder is standing in front of investors, pointing at a product that doesn't work, telling a story that sounds exactly like salvation, calling it a revolution, just like she did.